Picture creating a life beside a serene lake, where each dawn felt like a treasure. For years, Mariah held dear her small wooden bridge, a pathway she built with her own hands. It was more than a crossing, it was her emblem of liberty, her link to the tranquil splendor of the lake she adored so fiercely. But tranquility is fleeting. The local HOA, a group claiming to uphold standards, viewed her bridge with disdain. They labeled it unauthorized, hazardous, and against their regulations. To Mariah, it was her essence. To them, it was a nuisance. Then, one summer morning, without notice, they dismantled it. Piece by piece, her bridge was destroyed, her dreams shattered before her eyes. Neighbors looked on, some quiet, some murmuring, but none intervened. That evening, as Mariah stood on the muddy shore gazing at the void, she resolved. If they could strip her joy without compassion, she would teach them what compassion truly meant, and what losing everything really felt like. They misjudged her. Mariah wasn't merely a woman with a bridge, she was the daughter of a fisherman, raised knowing the lake's pulse, its flows, its secrets. The HOA believed they had triumphed, but they never questioned who truly commanded the water. Concealed among the tall reeds at the property's edge stood a dam, an old mechanism most residents ignored. But Mariah knew every cog, every handle, every way it sustained the lake. As fury surged through her, she realized something potent, that dam controlled their lavish haven. The resorts, the yachts, the gleaming decks that made the community look like a postcard, all depended on the water's level. Under the stars, her hands shook not from fear but from certainty. If they could erase her peace, she would unravel the illusion of theirs. The next day, Mariah moved through the neighborhood as if nothing had shifted. HOA members bragged about the tidiness without her bridge, grinning as if they'd restored order. But beneath her composed exterior, her plan was in motion. She visited the dam silently, each step resonating with purpose. Her fingers grazed the sturdy metal levers like greeting a trusted ally. With one tug, the water began to move. It was subtle at first, just a steady trickle, like the lake exhaling years of confinement. Hours passed, and ripples turned to currents. The opulent boats that once glided proudly began to tilt. Neighbors noticed waterlines receding from their docks. At first, they assumed it was natural. But Mariah knew otherwise. From her porch, she watched as resort managers scurried, their smug grins replaced by panic. Her pain had found its voice in the ebbing water. By the third day, murmurs spread through the community. Why is the water so low? Who manages the dam? The once pristine lakefront that fueled property values and attracted affluent visitors now lay barren, its muddy bed exposed like a scar. The HOA convened urgent meetings, their polished assurance fracturing. Investors called, irate and worried, demanding explanations. Families who had crafted their status around the sparkling shoreline felt exposed, helpless against nature, or so they believed. Mariah remained silent, moving among them like a specter of patience. Each time she saw their frustration, she recalled the splinters of her ruined bridge, the sound of wood cracking under careless hands. They craved control. Now they could feel what it meant to lose it all. The irony was almost too rich, the woman they tried to silence held the reins. Soon, the truth began to seep as swiftly as the water. Some residents remembered Mariah's deep knowledge of the lake, her family's ties to the dam. Accusations flew, voices rose, yet no one could prove anything. The HOA, once confident, now sat uneasy in endless meetings, debating legal threats, desperate repairs, and sinking property values. Mariah felt no hurry. She had learned patience from years fishing with her father, waiting calmly for the perfect moment. Each morning, she sipped her coffee, watching birds peck at the lakebed where water once gleamed. She hadn't uttered a word to defend herself when they destroyed her bridge. Now, without speaking, she was showing them the cost of destroying something priceless. The calm in her eyes unsettled them more than any admission. As the lake dwindled, resort owners pleaded for a fix. Guests canceled bookings, investors withdrew, and the once thriving community became a husk of broken dreams. For the HOA, it was a nightmare spiraling beyond their grasp. They approached Mariah with forced smiles, offering to rebuild her bridge, to compromise, to negotiate. But it was too late. Apologies matter only before devastation, not after. She listened quietly, her gaze unwavering, as they scrambled for forgiveness. She wasn't cruel, she simply understood equilibrium. They had stolen her peace, she had returned the lesson tenfold. In her silence, they heard the thunder of justice louder than any words could convey. Months later, the resort stood deserted, the community's lavish reputation washed away with the water. Grass sprouted where docks once floated. The HOA collapsed under lawsuits and debt, its leaders scattered, its arrogance humbled. And there was Mariah, her land serene again, her nights filled with the natural hum of crickets instead of motors. The bridge was gone, but so was the burden of others dictating her value. She hadn't just drained a lake, she had drained the illusion that power lies in rules and paperwork. In the end, she showed them the truth. True strength comes not from titles or committees but from the quiet, unyielding resolve of someone who refuses to be erased. And while the world forgot the lake's resort, the tale of the woman who opened the dam endured, whispered like a myth, a reminder that justice often flows like water, quiet, steady, unstoppable. People said the lake would never recover. But nature, like Mariah, has its own patience. Seasons changed, rains fell, and slowly the water returned, not as grand or polished as before, but alive in its raw beauty. Without the HOA's rigid rules and obsession with appearances, the shoreline breathed freely. Wildflowers bloomed where stone paths once stood, and birds returned, filling the quiet with songs no wealth could buy. Visitors stopped coming, but the stillness became a gift. Neighbors who once scorned Mariah now approached her with humility, shaped by what they had lost and learned. They no longer saw her as the woman with an outlawed bridge, they saw her as the keeper of a story, the one who taught them that respect outweighs control. And though she never boasted, never raised her voice, her presence carried a strength they could no longer ignore. In the end, the lake wasn't just water, it was truth. And truth always finds its way back, no matter how hard people try to suppress it. Time passed, and Mariah's story spread beyond the quiet community. Writers chronicled it. Bloggers shared it, and soon people everywhere whispered about the woman who drained a lavish resort with nothing but courage and patience. To some, she was a symbol of rebellion, to others, a warning about greed and hubris. But to those nearby, she was something deeper, a reminder that strength doesn't always shout, sometimes it speaks in silence, sometimes it flows like water. Strangers came not to visit a resort but to stand on the muddy ground and hear her tale, as if the breeze carried her voice. Mariah never sought fame, never craved recognition, but fate had etched her name into the lake's soil. And though she had lost a bridge, she had built something far greater, a legend. A reminder that no rule, no title, no committee can erase the will of a heart that refuses to break. Years later, the lake was no longer the dazzling gem it once was, but in its place was something truer, wild beauty. Willow trees arched over the shallow water, grasses swayed in the wind, and children from nearby towns played where luxury yachts once sailed. What had been a playground for the rich was now a haven for those seeking peace. And through it all, Mariah endured. Older now, her hair streaked with silver, she often sat by the water's edge with a quiet smile, watching ripples carry stories only she truly understood. Neighbors who once mocked her bridge now sat beside her, listening, learning, realizing how little they had valued what truly mattered. She never preached, never scolded, she spoke softly, sharing lessons of balance, respect, and the cost of forgetting that nature is shared, not owned. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mariah knew the truth. Her bridge was gone, but her story had built something stronger than wood or stone. It had built wisdom that would outlast them all.